this is where we focus only on negative aspects of our situations, our performances, and we completely disregard and ignore any positive elements that have happened. So we only filter through the negative things. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Lewis Hatchett, mindset mental performance coach, former professional athlete myself. I'm also a student of performance psychology at Bangor University and the creator of the Mind Strong Sport app. So we all know that we've got negative voices in our head, but they come in different forms. And today we're going to go through 10 of the most common thinking traps that athletes fall into that massively hinders your chances of success and your just overall mental performance and enjoyment of your sport that you're doing. So we'll go through what these negative thinking traps are, how we can start to reframe them, and then how we turn them into positive thoughts and actions. Okay, so if you've clicked on this video, you've probably got some form of negative thinking. And first off, congratulations, you're human. Just like all of us, we have these negative thinking traps. The trouble is which bucket do we fall into and which one do we go to more often? Now, these negative thinking traps are known as cognitive distortions, which essentially at a very basic level are thoughts that cause us as individuals to see reality inaccurately. So we don't see reality how it actually happens. We create a new reality in our minds. And chances are, because I know I've done one of these 10, if not all of them, that you are doing one of these, and it's really important that we bring awareness to which one it is so that we know which one we maybe lean towards the most and which one tends to be our flavor of distortion. So let's get straight into these 10. Okay, first up, all or nothing thinking. Now, all or nothing thinking is where you start to see extremes in everything. You see black or white. You don't see any middle ground whatsoever. So if you were to throw this in a scenario, you as a player, you might have a bad game and one bad game, and then suddenly think, I'm a total failure. I'm never going to be any good, and I can't play this game, even if it's just one game that you've had. You believe that that's it. Black or white, you are a failure, and there is no in between. It's all or nothing. So if this is you and you had one setback or one moment, it's about recognizing that just because it's one moment, it doesn't brand you as a total. Understand that you're able to take a loss, a mistake, and that is just a part of the journey. It doesn't mean it's everything about you. So you might find that if you're making progress, you've had some achievements, but then you make a mistake, you make a setback, you then suddenly think, I'm a total failure, I can't do this. The goal is to recognize that mistakes, setbacks, inaccuracy along the way to improvement and progress is just a part of the journey. Through accepting that, you can start to move away from this all or nothing thinking and find that middle ground. Okay, number 2, what have we got? Overgeneralization. Now, this one for sure is one that I have 100% done myself. Overgeneralization is when you start to create broad conclusions based on very limited evidence. So you might have one failure. You might be a runner and you choke under pressure. And then you start to think that I always choke under pressure. I will never win this race and I will never play well at this venue because I've never had success there. So you overgeneralize everything. You don't find, again, any middle ground. You're just creating massively broad statements where there's very little evidence to say that what you've said is actually true. So the way we overcome this, maybe reframe it, is recognizing that you can challenge that belief that just because one instant happens, it doesn't predict future outcomes. It's just one occasion. It's just one moment. Doesn't mean it's going to happen again in the future. And you might want to start to reflect on moments where you've had in the past where you've actually had successful moments, where you've had experiences that have gone well, because the chances are through overgeneralization, you've just completely forgotten about those because you've cast this broad brush over everything. So then moving forward, you can start to recognize that just each competition that you find is unique in itself. You know that understanding one poor performance doesn't dictate your entire career. I think one of the overgeneralizations that I had was either at certain venues or in certain conditions. I used to just generalize that I can never play well in those conditions and this just doesn't suit me. And when I recognized that that was just one occasion, and then next games that I got to that were just unique occasions themselves, yes, they might have been similar conditions, it changed everything because it was its own thing. All right, on to number 3, filtering. Now, this is where we focus only on negative aspects of our situations, our performances, and we completely disregard and ignore any positive elements that have happened. So we only filter through the negative things. And this is where our minds are so negatively biased, because we just do this on a daily basis, that if we think like this, then we can really exacerbate this in our performances, because we will just not let go of the performances or the negative elements of a performance. So you will find that if you're maybe a soccer player and you score twice in a match, that you will only focus on the one missed opportunity rather than the 2 goals that you scored. The trouble with this is that when you filter so much of the positive and only look for the negative, there will just never be something good enough. You'll always look for the positive. So you need to balance your evaluations on what you're doing. You need to look at every competition and find both the positive and negatives. And this is quite simple, that you can grab a notepad, and I really encourage this, that you just take a notepad after every performance and write down 3 things you did well, 3 things you maybe didn't do so well, and then you can even add in what you're going to do next game to make it better. But you are recognizing that it's a balanced argument. It's not just filtering out the positive and only looking at the negative. You've got both ends of the argument there. I definitely used to filter out quite a lot as well. All right, on to number 4, mind reading. This is where we start to assume that we know what other people are thinking or feeling without any concrete evidence. We will often put this onto our coaches, our teammates, maybe even our family, and think we know what they're thinking about us rather than us actually knowing what that is. You might be, say, a tennis player and you're looking over at the sidelines and you're seeing your coach make a certain few expressions and you just think, they don't look very happy with me. Their body language is saying that it doesn't look good at me, and so they can't be happy with me at all. I must be doing something wrong. They're probably regretting coaching me totally, and I'm an absolute failure. Get me off this court. This is where we can really start to create stories in our minds about what other people are saying about us, and they're never really anywhere near being true. So the goal here is to communicate with, whether it's your coaches, your teammates, the person that you think you are creating some form of story about because you might be mind reading what they're saying. It is really about communication. You want to understand and gain clarity about their thoughts, their feedback, everything that they're saying, and really start to get some objective evidence, because everything that you are putting on them or you're creating is subjective. You don't know anything about what they're thinking, so you need to ask them. And that is brave. It takes a bit of courage and vulnerability, but you'll get clarity. You'll build a better relationship with your coaches, your teammates, those that are involved, and you will start to think a lot better because of that communication. So go ahead, talk to them. I know it's uncomfortable, but it will definitely build trust, your communication, your relationships. You'll feel supported, guided. Can't recommend that one enough. All right, number 5, or this one 100%, catastrophizing. Catastrophizing will look like you could have a slightly poor performance and then make it completely blown out of proportion that it makes future performances seem like they're not even worth doing. So you could be a swimmer and you just don't perform very well in a qualifying heat, and then you think, I'll never make it in the finals, and why am I even swimming? It's not even worth me doing it. My entire career is over. Get me out of the pool. We've completely catastrophized that situation. This is a really common one that I see in young athletes, because you just think that the emotions that you're running on right now is the emotions that you're going to be running on into the future, and it can just snowball massively. So again, we want to try and make a balanced and realistic perspective and start to challenge those exaggerated thoughts that you're creating. So a lot of this is about creating optimism, not looking for pessimism. You're going to constantly try and find something that is optimistic. So when you have something that doesn't go exactly to plan, instead of falling into this catastrophizing mindset, you want to look for an optimistic view. So look for the things that you did well. Again, trying to create a balanced argument as to why this is not the end of the world and that you can actually do quite well, and you're maybe just blowing it out of proportion, considering that it's not all over. You can start to see this as just a speed bump, a setback, and then just with a bit of determination, bit of effort, you can overcome it. And the other side of that is true. You start to put in good performances, you start to really feel it as just being something that was temporary, and oh, okay, I was just blowing that out of proportion and it's not all that bad. So catastrophizing, a real common one, but just try to find the optimism in every moment. Try to create some problem solving so that you can develop that resilience moving forward. Okay, hopefully you're enjoying this video, and if you are, then don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to hit the subscribe as well so you can follow along to the channel, and you can even hit the bell so that you don't miss out on any new videos. You will be notified as one of the first people when we upload a new video. All right, let's get back into this video. Up next, number 6, personalization. This is where we take events that are outside of our control, usually external events, and we start to take responsibility for them. We start to take them personally. So you might be someone that is in a team sport and you could be losing a crucial match. And at the end of the game, instead of thinking, we lost that match, you will go, we lost that match because of me. It was my fault. And if only I had played a little bit better, I think we would have won. The reality is you are totally disregarding a load of factors that are beyond your control. And there are so many things that are not in our control. Even if we try our best in sport, we can try our best and we still may not get the result. That if we personalize everything, we will just constantly think things are our fault and we are the ones that causing all of the negative things that are happening to us and maybe even our teammates. So while we want to take responsibility for our efforts and our actions moving forward, and that is 100% something that you want to do as an athlete, we do need to recognize that there are so many different factors, various factors that are influenced throughout sport. Could be teamwork, could be opponents, could be the environment, referees' decisions, so many different external circumstances that can cause outcomes beyond our control. So you have to recognize that rather than personalizing every single detail as you being the cause and the one that's controlled or maybe even and created the situation. So try not to personalize everything because there is so many things in sport that are not in your control. Alrighty, number 7. This one is a common one. Labeling. This is where we start to create global labels for ourselves based on negative events, and we just label them about ourselves based on what's happened. So if you're a golfer and you miss one putt, instead of just thinking, oh, that putt was bad, you might label yourself a complete failure. And you're just ignoring all of the successful events that happen, all the good shots that you've done, the good round that you're having. You're just thinking you're a complete failure. And we negatively label ourselves. Now, labeling itself is not the bad thing. It's the negative label that we're placing, because we can place a positive label on ourselves. So what you want to do is, moving forward, focus on constructive criticism. Recognize that, okay, that was not a good shot, but I'm progressing. I'm trying my hardest. I'm hardworking. And you can build labels based on your character. So instead of saying, I'm a complete failure because I got one shot wrong, you say, I got one shot wrong and I am resilient, and therefore I'm going to overcome it and start to work harder, and I'm going to get rid of that setback and work towards the next shot. You might say, I am committed, and you start to create characteristics and values and label yourself with those that are much more optimistic. They're much more built towards growth and developing you in a positive light, rather than just completely negatively labeling yourself all the time. Up next is emotional reasoning. This is where we start to reason with our emotions, and we start to create stories based on how we're feeling and our emotions. So you might be nervous, and instead of just assuming I'm nervous, you might start to say, well, I'm nervous because I'm unprepared and I'm not ready. And you're reasoning as to why those emotions exist. So you might be a gymnast, and just before a competition, you think, I'm feeling really nervous, but you add more onto it and say, well, I must not have prepared very well, and I'm going to make a complete fool of myself and embarrass myself out there. You start to reason more with the emotions. So what we want to do is validate and recognize that the emotions we're feeling don't necessarily reflect the objective reality that we're currently in. We all feel emotions, but it's also not necessarily because we haven't prepared. You just have to recognize that I'm just going to feel nervous because this is a big event and I'm just feeling the emotion of nerves. It's still the fact I have still trained, I have still worked hard, I have still done all of the work, but you're just having to recognize that I'm just feeling this emotion, rather than thinking the emotion is always based on something negative. This is where we actually have to cultivate and develop emotional resiliency. This is acknowledging and managing our emotions, all the ups, all the downs, and just recognizing that there is a perspective that we must start to maintain and bring some form of rational thinking to that emotion. Recognize emotions are happening to you. They aren't necessarily built on some form of reality that you're creating, or even a storyline that you might be creating, because it's not necessarily true. It's just an emotion that you might be feeling, which is totally normal, totally human. One way you can start to understand your emotions is by using the Mind Strong Sport app, where we've developed meditations, courses, breathing exercises, all designed to be your mental gym as an athlete, so that you can work on your mindset, your mental performance, and definitely work on understanding your emotions, your thinking, where you are as an athlete. So if you're interested in that, head to the link in the description. You can download the app. It's available on iOS and Android, and you can get started right now as an athlete, because it's built for you as an athlete by athletes. And let us know how you get on. Okay, number 9 is discounting the positive. This is where we minimize, diminish any positive outcomes, achievements, experiences, or qualities that we have. So you might be a baseball player. You hit a home run, and instead of thinking, I've nailed that, I've done really well, you turn around and you go, that was just luck. I'm still not a very good player. So the way we overcome this and change it is by practicing maybe a bit of gratitude, self-compassion, self-appreciation. So the way we overcome this is by practicing some gratitude, some self-appreciation, and just acknowledging our accomplishments. So the way we overcome this is by practicing things like gratitude, self-appreciation, and just really recognizing our achievements. So our accomplishments, our strengths that we have, we want to write those down. So next time you have a good performance, don't just discount it, think, oh, that was luck, it just happened, I'm not that good still. Write down, no, I did that well because I've put in the hours of work. I knew what I was doing, I knew how to perform, and I executed it well. You're not minimizing or overlooking any of these positive experiences, you're bringing them to life. Writing them down is great because you can look back at them in the future and that will build your self-belief. Okay, number 10, and this is the best one out of them all. I think this is one that everyone does and it's so common, and one that you can easily get rid of, and it can drastically change your mental approach to what you do, and that is should statements. Should statements just involve rigid beliefs that you have. You use words like should, must, and I describe it as you should all over yourself. So when we're using should, it's really rigid, it's very confining, it's stressful, it can create feelings of guilt, frustration, anger, shame, and we're fixing ourselves in our beliefs. So if you're a runner or a track athlete and let's say you don't meet the time that you're expecting of yourself, you say, I should have trained harder, or I must be lazy or undisciplined. You're creating these really stressful situations. It's even as simple as I should be on time, I should train X amount of times a week. All of these should statements are really confining, they're very stressful, and they don't actually work in real life because life is flexible, life is always changing, and there needs to be some adaptability to it. When we're saying should statements, we're creating these unrealistic and unachievable goals sometimes. So the way we change that is quite simply changing the word should into could. So I should be on time turns into I could be on time, but I know things are happening in life and I might be late every now and then. But that doesn't mean that you choose to be late. That's not creating laziness. That means that you're saying, okay, I'm not confining myself to this. I'm going to work hard to be on time, but it means that I know there are some things that could happen along the way. And instead of saying, I should have trained harder, you might say, well, I could have trained harder, but there were some situations that happened and I'm going to train harder moving forward. And turning things like I must into I might. So I must be lazy could be I might be lazy, but I don't think I am. I am disciplined and I'm going to be working harder still to try and get better times moving forward. I know this was a bad race. I'm just going to move on. This is really just about recognizing that setting flexible and attainable goals is all about recognizing a journey is marked by your effort, your learning, your growth, various different things. And it's not a straightforward, rigid environment that we live in when we use shoulds and musts all the time. We need to be adaptable, we need to be flexible as athletes, and if we don't create this form of thinking, then we leave a lot of opportunity out there for us not to grab. So create that thinking, create these words, create that language, and you can see some drastic differences in your success and your outcomes and your progress. That's all of them. Our 10 cognitive distortions, our thinking traps as an athlete. Let us know in the comments which one that you find you do most commonly. If there was perhaps one that wasn't on that list, maybe you're doing one of those, let us know in the comments as well. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so that you are one of the first people to be notified of any new videos that are coming out. Also, if you want to improve your mental performance, then I recommend that you go and try out these mental skills in this video right here, right now.